Hi everyone.
Welcome to another episode of
Girl Talk.
It's good to have you with us again tonight. I'm actually so excited about tonight. I'm excited about our guest Shaun, who's in the studio with us today. We may go longer tonight, guys. So make sure that you don't log off in case we go over, or we may go to a second episode. Who knows?
Yeah. So we have a jam-packed episode for you tonight. We are going to be talking all things money. So if you have any questions, now's the time to shoot them in the comments. We will do our best to answer all of your questions. But Sarah, do you want to introduce tonight's guest?
Yeah, so you guys, I think everyone and their mum heard me speak about my mortgage and when I was believing for my house and obviously the fight to get my house. Well, this is the person that I honestly, outside of God, that is responsible for getting me the house. I honestly and truly do not believe that any other broker in this country or any other country could have got me this house other than Shaun. So this is my first time actually meeting Shaun in person, even though he knows every little aspect of my life because the mortgage company asked for it. He's also gone on to help many members of our church, 4 off the top of my head that I know of. And one thing with Shaun is he's a born again Christian, which is awesome. And there was times where we really had to stand. We had to stand and travail. But also he just fights for you. And I have never actually been able to say this to you in person, but thank you so much, because you fought beyond your job description, beyond what you were being paid. You really did. There was one night where he was actually in the middle of his dinner and I got a call from my real estate agent saying that they'd pulled the property, and Shaun stayed on the phone with me for an hour and a half and we tag team backwards and forwards and fought that house back into my hands. So he is an amazing financial advisor, mortgage broker, money expert. So if you are not following Shaun, can you give us your Instagram hold? What's your Instagram name?
Absolutely. Monarch Sterling, on Instagram, monarchsterling.co.uk.
So Monarch, MONARCH, Sterling, STERLING. So go over and follow Monarch Sterling. And do you have any other information that how we can get in contact with you, your email or anything else?
Yeah, absolutely. Email is info@monarchsterling.co.uk. And yeah, just on the website there'll be the information, telephone numbers, contact us, links in there as well.
Perfect. So we want to inundate Shaun. We're going to be giving that information again at the end. So
Absolutely.
Shaun's going to be talking to us about all things money. So where do we begin?
So let's ask you, obviously, how did you get into this? Like, what drew you to, obviously, the financial industry?
Wow, good question. Initially, I actually was studying law. So I was at uni studying law. I didn't quite know what I wanted to do, if I'm being honest with you. My friends were studying law. I thought, it sounds good. My dad was like, yeah, go for it. Study law. And that's the course I was on. And then halfway through my LPC, which is the postgraduate training course for solicitors, it's such a long story, but I'll abbreviate the story. I just had a moment where I just felt like God was saying, that's a really good career. We need lawyers, but I didn't tell you to be a lawyer. And so that started a journey whereby I got into banking, initially retail banking, and I was just driven. you know, within about 24 months, I almost tripled my salary. I ended up spending a lot of time private banking. So I was dealing with high net worth wealth managers, and it just happened that I navigated through different courses, different parts of the country. I worked in London, Manchester, Edinburgh, and ultimately it led to me being inspired to be independent, because a lot of my clients were saying, we don't think the bank you're working in is great, but we really like your service, you know. We want to invest in you rather than the bank. And so that was the journey that triggered me finding my way into financial advice and mortgage broking.
Yeah, awesome.
Amazing.
So we've been fortunate enough to have a conversation with you prior to obviously being live on the show today, and you dropped so many incredible nuggets. We didn't even know where to begin, but you started the conversation by speaking about the fact that we have an unhealthy relationship with money. Can you just talk us through that a little bit? What does it mean to have a healthy relationship with money? What does it mean to have an unhealthy relationship with money? And you said some really powerful truths in there, and I just want everyone to capture part of what we spoke about earlier.
Yeah, definitely. So I think when we think of money, often we think of money as this object for us to attain. It's a measure of success. It can sometimes be a measure of your self-value. But essentially, money's just a tool. Money is a means to an end. It's a tool to achieve other objectives. And so I think initially, sometimes we have that misunderstanding. We don't see the value in ourselves. And if we don't see the value in ourselves, sometimes we outsource that responsibility to other people who are going to measure us by different metrics and essentially get the value of us wrong, because sometimes we don't always get the price right. So we are.
There was just so much in
I know, right?
I'm like, I want to put him on pause and like process that statement just there.
Yeah. So we have so much intrinsic value, innate value. Money's just a tool. Like, I have a friend that says it's only money, and it's so true. Like, whether it's £5, £50, £1,000, £1 million, it's only money. And so it's a tool, and people with a healthy relationship with money understand that. People with an unhealthy relationship don't understand that.
Yeah, that's good.
If you understand how to generate money, I can take money away from you, but I'm not taking value away from you, because you will still be able to generate that money. So essentially, wisdom is more valuable than money.
Okay.
There's a lot of things which are more valuable than money. I know we all come from a faith background here, so the word of God says that a good name is better than silver and gold. In fact, if you really boil down what tender is, and sort of how money came about as a bartering system, as a means of exchange, we never originally had money. So the value of what we call money is not necessarily really value. We've only attributed value to it. That's why it's really interesting, sort of how the world is turning and things like that. So just bringing it sort of back down in terms of like a healthy relationship with money. I think a healthy relationship with money is understanding what money really is, and understanding that it's just a tool. Money's good because money gives you options. We're not denying that, right? If you don't want your child to go to that school, you can pay for the school you want, right? If you don't have money, you don't have options, and that's not healthy at all. But you know, some of the poorest people I know have lots of money, and so it's about understanding what the value of money is.
That's an interesting statement.
Yeah, definitely.
Some of the poorest people you know have got lots of money.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
I think that, like I was saying before, because of the benefit of my experience, I've seen so many different types of people, people that are well known, people that are less well known, and what I find is that some people are poor because all they have is their money.
Okay. Yeah.
If all you have is your money, then you're poor, right? There's so many things which are just as, if not more valuable. Your health, your relationship. If my phone book has millionaires in my phone book, then whether I'm a millionaire or not is somewhat immaterial. Eventually, there's going to be millionaire opportunities based off people I know.
Yeah.
So the relationships are just not, if not more, important than that. And so some people understand that. Some we've all met people, and you know, they may have things that society aspires to have, but they're not people that we'd want to be around. And so I think that eventually, just having some core things in place, being a nice person, being a likable person,
Having your family in place.
100%.
Because some people, they work and work and work, and they're successful. Got lots of money, but their marriage is a mess. Their kids, there's no relationship going on there. So I guess that's what you mean by the poor. You're wealthy, but you're poor in your relationships.
Yeah, definitely.
Excellent.
So let's talk about money, because I think that this is a little bit of a taboo subject sometimes. I think
one of those don't talk about
that money
subjects.
can have this almost like stigma attached to it, that people don't want to discuss money. You know, growing up a lot of the time in households, money is almost seen as a negative. It's always kind of the stem of issues, the stem of problems. Oh, there's never enough money. So it almost becomes like a taboo. Talk to us about the culture in money, especially in Black culture. A lot of the times there's an unhealthy view of what money is, especially in a household. It's definitely not really shared, that knowledge amongst us as parents and children. We don't have that dynamic. Talk to us about why that is important, because you shared some really great nuggets about starting the conversation in our homes.
So as a community, there's a lot of things that we're catching up with in regards to money. There's a massive disproportion between sort of BAME, people from BAME backgrounds, and females as well, in regards to financial position and wealth and being in the top tier of earners in the UK. I know because I'm doing a project around that at the moment. And so that is a cultural thing in some degrees. It's something that needs to change, and it is changing. But I think in terms of how we can change it, is, you know, because there's different factors as to how we got there, and we could probably be here all day talking about that. But in terms of what we can do to change it, we just need to really just change the culture, like talk about money in the household. And that means different things to different people. My youngest son is 2, my oldest is 14. It's a different conversation, but it's the same culture. If I'm open about money, if I say, son, I've got this decision to make, I can buy this, these are the pros and cons, all of a sudden he's becoming financially literate. He's understanding money, and he's inclusive in that conversation. So all of these things are things that we need to really discuss on a really simple level.
I like that point, because most often, especially again, unfortunately within Black culture, we don't include our children in those decision making. But it's, if we're thinking training, then you're going to bring them in, and you're imparting wisdom and knowledge to them. Whereas usually when it comes to Black culture, the kids are excluded from those things. So I think that's a really good point for our listeners.
Well, I think what you said is really key. You said to make them financially literate. So in order for someone to be literate, you can also be illiterate. So I think that one of the powerful things that you said to us is that every wealthy person that you've met, money was always part of the conversation. It's like introduced to their children, so that when they get older, it's not this surprise. Okay, now, oh my gosh, like now I have to manage money. So practically, how can we start doing that in our households? You said you got a 2-year-old, I've got a 2-year-old. I've got a 7-year-old and an 8-year-old. You've got a 14-year-old. Obviously, those conversations look different. How do we start those conversations? What can you give us an example of how that would work?
Yeah, definitely. So one of the easiest ways is to play games with kids. Kids love games. We can make it creative, we can make it fun. It's life, but let's relate to them in a way that they can understand. Kids are really smart. They're smarter than we give them credit for a lot of the time. They pick up things, so they understand. But if we're talking about sort of things that we can do, practical things, play Monopoly with kids.
Yeah.
Simple as that. Play Monopoly.
I remember in the summer we actually, Sarah's two girls, they've got a little playhouse in the garden, and they set up shop during the summer, so they were selling us cheese.
Wow.
But it was, I guess it's things like that. It looks like, nothing serious, but it's actually teaching them to be business people, teaching them to trade, teaching them money in a play way.
Giving them that entrepreneurial mindset, because if you look at the richest people in the world, they'll all have their own business. And so if we're teaching our children that, we need to teach them how to generate income. I love I think it's Dave Ramsey. He has like this method where he says he teaches his kids to work or generate income. He teaches them how to be generous, which is a massive thing as well. He teaches them how to spend well and save well.
That's excellent.
And if those are like 4 principles where you can just teach your kids, incentivize them.
And they're so much more powerful than to just give them things. Because we're a culture today where it's like if your children want a pair of trainers like for £200-400 and parents just dish it out, whereas like my growing up, anything you wanted you had to save up from your pocket money. So you were learning, we had piggy banks and you had to save, and so if you wanted anything like that you never got given it.
But I think what's so powerful as well, what you're saying, Sharon, is because I think especially in black households, we probably are aware of money, but in the wrong way. So, switch off the light, it's costing me money. Oh, don't put that back, it's costing me money. So you can almost grow up with a really negative, almost like, okay, money is a negative. And like you said, money is a fantastic tool to get you all the things that you want in life. So I think that we also need to change our dialogue in our home, where we can't have it where the only time we're talking about money
in a negative
way of you're costing me money, we can't afford that, put it back. That's now good, I think that it's really important that we find creative ways, like you're saying, to make money fun, to make money something, like you said, where I can attain this. And I think you slipped something in just now which could have gone undetected if we weren't listening, but you said that you could never really obtain the highest level of wealth while you're working for someone else. I'm paraphrasing it. Go ahead.
No, that's so true. Like we have this thing where sometimes they grow up, like you said, and the only time they hear money is in a negative sense, or the bills, or I don't have enough money. And sometimes it's as simple as changing that dialogue to, okay, maybe you don't physically have enough money, but okay, how can we get that? Rather than let's not get that, and then incentivizing them with different things. Because money's not taught in schools.
It's not.
So
I was going to say
crazy, that. Right? Doesn't make sense.
See, I think that this is something that needs to change, and I don't know who's going to champion it in education, but we're sending our kids out into the world so unprepared. They're taught Latin, which has no relevance, to anything. They're taught so many unnecessary subjects that are not actually equipping them.
With life skills.
And I think that this is something that we have to really champion in our homes as parents, to really educate our children. But I think before we can do that, we as parents, we as adults need to be educated. Exactly. So how do we go about, obviously, if this is completely foreign, this is something completely new, this has been my story, I've had a negative outlook on money up until now, how do I now go about changing my perspective so that I can then pass that on to my children?
Good question. I think it comes from self-investment. I think you have to be honest about where you are. I think we have to understand that, especially culturally, our relationship with money is to consume. So it's like we're culturally, we're one of like the biggest, one of the probably the top 1 or 2 buyers of Mercedes-Benz, and
we're the show-offs.
Basically.
We like to wear our money.
When we're saying we're talking about people with a higher melanin.
Okay. Anyone from Wakanda. So yeah, absolutely. That's it.
She was going to do that.
I always wanted to do that.
So we sometimes have our priorities in the wrong place. Like
Yeah.
we're very good consumers at the moment, but we need to be creators. And
Yeah.
That's powerful.
We're
I think you need
innately-
to say that one more time.
we need to be creators,
Yeah.
and innately we are. And it's our father's nature to be creative.
Yeah.
And so we have to realize that money is, as I know we spoke about before, is a tool, but it's also a byproduct of so many things.
Yeah.
And I know fitness is quite a big thing with you ladies, but self-discipline in one area begats self-discipline in other areas as well.
Wow.
And so the whole kind of concept of money and having different pots of money and different streams of money, it's actually intertransferable with different areas of life. And so how do we change that culture? I think we're real about where we are. I think we get around people that are doing things with money, may be able to introduce us to different rooms, read different books. 100%. I was coming on to book. Some of us don't even like to read, but if it's got to be an audio book, listen to an audio book.
Yeah.
You know, instead of listening to wherever people are listening to at the moment. You know, like we're so big on Netflix that every now and again listen to an audio, you know, or watch a documentary about money, or listen to someone speaking about money.
This is something that myself and my husband are really quite passionate about. We are very much, you know, you're a byproduct of your association, and it's about making sure that you're, a lot of the times we stay within a circle where we're never challenged. So we stay with the people that we've grown up with, and we kind of stay with those people. But it's really important to never be at the top of your circle. You know, there should always be somebody that helps to elevate you. Stacey said, what did she say? Don't just do life with vertical people. You need to have people that are horizontal as well. That's going to obviously uplift you. That's going to take you to new places. And I think that's something that you know we definitely do that. That there are people in our circle that earn probably 20, 30, 40 times as much as we ever have or do at the moment, but we know it's something it's inspirational. You know, that if they can do it, then, and it's not just about money, it's about we share different skills and different tools. And I think that's really important, that you don't just be in a circle where no one challenges each other. I think it's so important that we challenge each other.
I think it's really about breaking cycles, isn't it? Because you know my mum lived in this type of accommodation, my grandmother lived in this type of accommodation, and I think it's really stepping out. Like one of the people that you just helped to get a mortgage, I stood in her flat and I said, "You're not an East London girl anymore," you know, and she was like, "It's crazy." And she had this dream and this passion to change the cycle, and she has. And so I think that there is a generation coming up that is willing to change the cycle and is happy to change the cycle. So I think we just need to try and put those tools in their hands. So if someone's watching now and they're like, you know what, I don't have a higher education, you know, I didn't go to university, I have what we may call a layman's job, where you know I might be on a minimum wage or whatever, I'm in a council property, I don't have good credit. How do, because you know we don't want to also presume that everybody knows how to even start this process. You know, you don't know anybody that even owns their own property, let alone, you know, dream of having yours. I met with someone, I dated a guy once where he said he'd never even dreamed of living in a semi-detached house before, and you know I was looking at detached houses and everything, and that's the first time I even knew that somebody could limit themselves on that in that way. So everyone's obviously depending on what you've been exposed to. So how do we break cycles and move? Because you said something really powerful. The Indians have done it really well. The Jews have done it really well. But in the Black community, we haven't done it so well. And we need to break the cycles. So let's talk about a little bit about the cycles.
So there's so many generational cycles of things that we repeat and we repeat and we repeat. But essentially, we have, I think we have to have the desire to break the cycle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't think you can desire that unless you're exposed to it.
Yeah.
So there's so many things that I never wanted until I saw it was possible.
Yeah. That's
And I think that's why I love the point you made about being around people who are just not living in the same world as you, and so exposing yourself to different groups of people. Like, we live in a day and age where there's so much free information, there's so many free groups, there's so many different things you can do to educate yourself. That really there's very little excuse to stay where you are, other than the fact that you don't have the desire. And so that's not to say it's going to be easy or it's going to be the same journey for everyone, but at least start having conversation. And what you tend to find is that people gravitate towards that conversation, and then you can then leverage off that again and help each other and expose things to each other. And did you see this? And did you know this is happening? And just sign yourself up for so many free things. There's so much free information about how to build your credit. There's so much free information about property investing now. There's so much things you can do from where you are. So I'd say, instead of starting with what you don't have, start with what you do have. What do I have in my hands? What can I do with what I have? And start there. And I think that it's an equitable world if you keep going. If someone once said, I think if you're willing to wait forever, you won't be waiting long. Like, if you have that resilience to break the cycle, then the persistence will break the resistance.
I think one thing that I would really like to challenge with our viewers tonight is, I think one of the things that I've seen with the Jews, with the Asians, is there's such a power of unity. And I feel like this really is lacking in the Black culture, where it's almost like, I'm going to succeed, but I'm not going to do anything to help the next person to succeed. And it's this, I think my dad says, it's this crab mentality where, it can only be me that wins. And I think that's such an awful mindset. I've seen it recently where, we've started heavily investing into different areas, and it's like, nobody wants to share this information. Now, this information is free. And why would I not transfer that information to the next person so that we can all win? And that's something that we've started to do, where this information is readily available. We didn't know at one point, but now that we do know, let's pass that information on to the next person so that everyone can get a step up, everyone can get ahead. So how do we challenge that mentality and that mindset? Because I think it's really toxic, and it should be that we want the next person to win so that we can all win. Because surely, if we're this powerful race and we're united, we can obviously achieve much more.
Yeah, I like that.
That's crazy, isn't it? I think it's partly pride as well in there, because I want to shine brightest. So if I keep you down, I'm going to stand out more. And it's just I've seen it. And then the ones that do have come into wealth, they've got there, they know how they got there, but they won't share that with anyone else. So they see you struggling, and they've got more than enough to even help somebody else get on the ladder.
I think that the ones that get there are busy getting another car and another watch and another everything, and it's that flashy kind of let me shine, and £10,000 in someone else's hand could literally revolutionize their life. Do I need another watch? Do I need another pair of £500 shoes? Could I actually go back and help somebody else?
And that would be
Sometimes,
so incredible.
but sometimes it's not necessarily giving somebody money. Sometimes it's just giving people knowledge.
Yeah.
Knowledge is free and it's readily available, and I think that doesn't take anything away from us.
But I think that with the Indians and the Jews, it is that transference of wealth.
Yes,
like wealth
they help
begets
each
wealth,
other.
and they help each other, because you could tell me about investments till Jesus comes back. If I don't have money to invest in that, there's nothing I can do. So it's a very frustrating position, because then I just stay stuck in my cycle. The only way that what you're talking about alters and changes is where I do go back
and help
somebody.
And that is the secret. I mean, I think you talked about that with the Jews. and with the Indians, that they actually pool their money together, which is something I've seen my husband try to do in church. We've tried, if everybody got together and where it could be, everybody put £100. Can you imagine? That's that person's deposit for that house. But it only cost me £100. And if we do that, eventually everybody in the church would have a house. But it's trying to get that unity, especially amongst our culture. Within our culture is very difficult because we just don't have that unity, and it's crazy. How do we get that? How do we get that mindset? So I want to see you prosper as much as me.
That's
Is that a really hard one?
I don't think anyone has the answer to that.
It's just my frustration talking.
but I think this is part of the answer. I think sitting here and talking, and you've got 2 generations in your household, 3 generations, you're having the conversation and you're passing that on, and I think that is part of the answer. It's not going to be everyone. There's always going to be somebody who's me, myself, and I. Just like there is in the other cultures that we've discussed as well. But what they do is that they are happy to help each other and provide that information freely. And so I think for us, it's understanding it's not a zero-sums game. Like there's so much, there's more than enough for all of us to do well. There's more than enough money to go around. If you buy a house, it doesn't mean that was the only house I could have got. There's other houses on the street, there's other things we can do. I think just those kind of things.
That's the last house ever available.
But that's how we act, right?
Literally.
We act like, if I tell you what to invest in, and it's
you're
like,
gonna go buy
you're going to take every share.
People are already investing in it, and it's like, we just need to change that mindset, and I think that comes from
the mindset that there's more than enough money out there. Just because you've got several million doesn't mean that it's run out.
Absolutely. And just having that same thrill that sometimes we get when we consume and we buy a new handbag or a new pair of shoes, have that when you see somebody else win. I think that's what's helped me to a degree. I have that joy. I remember that phone call. I remember helping. I remember who we were speaking to.
I remember that when my mortgage offer came through, guys, we struggled with this mortgage, and I remember Shane saying that when my mortgage offer finally came through, he said that he sat back in his chair and he just looked at his computer, and you said you felt like you just wanted to cry. And I think that was so special, because I think that's what we're talking about, where you went above and beyond. Like, you don't have any shares in my house, your name's not on the mortgage. Do you know what I mean? I will invite you out for dinner one day once I get a dining table. But I think that for me, that's what we're talking about. That it was someone that was willing to go, you've got your house, you've got your kids, your wife, whatever. But it was literally going above and beyond to make it happen for somebody else.
I think it's a heart issue, though. I think it's a heart issue. And I think that the change has to start with us. Like, we have to be the catalyst. We have to be the one to bring about the change. And it's something that we can then pass on to our children and our children's children.
The Bible's right, isn't it? The money is a revealer of the heart.
It absolutely is. But obviously, let's talk about just generationally. Like, how do we, the Bible's very specific about us leaving an inheritance for the next generation. How do we do that? Like, what are some of the ways and what are some of the methods that we can do to obviously leave an inheritance? Because a lot of people, especially, you see it a lot in white culture where they left like an estate or like, a house, or, you get set up where, I think or shares, or also like if anyone's given like an extra 300 grand, or that's a great start. That's a great launch pad. Like, but we're very, I think, uneducated when it comes to leaving that inheritance and not just squandering everything on ourselves. How do we go about leaving that inheritance for the next generation?
I think there's some practical things we can do. Get life insurance policies in place, buy appreciating assets, buy stock, have savings for our kids.
Can you say some appreciating assets?
So property would be one. there are some liabilities, and there are times when property may not appreciate as much as we would think, but over the long haul, property would. The stock market, although that fluctuates as well, if you're looking over the course of someone's life, generally speaking, the right stock is likely to appreciate. Things like gold are likely to appreciate. I know we're speaking about different communities, but gold is big in some communities. They pass that on. And so I think all of those things are the kind of things that we need to look at investing in, rather than things which are seasonal. You know, you can buy a nice car today, but by the time
the moment you drive it.
there you go, and your kids are not going to want it when they're ready
Unless it's a
to
classic.
move. Unless
Still don't want
they probably won't. No. So I think there's some practical things that we can do. Putting things into limited companies is another thing. You'll find that a lot of wealthy people like to have things held in a limited company.
What, like,
explain that a little bit for us?
So if you have like investment properties, you can put all of these things into limited companies. You can have your own companies in limited companies, and then you can transfer the shares to your kids. There's a lot of tax benefits to that, as opposed to not having that set up.
Everyone's going to be booking an appointment with Shayan.
That's good to know.
Because tax is another thing that kills a lot of our inheritance. So education is probably the biggest thing, but I think it just starts with the mindset of, you know, we're not going to be here forever. Let me put in place some things today which are going to benefit my children tomorrow.
Someone's asking a trust.
And make a will.
Someone's asking a trust a good idea as well.
Trusts are good, Trusts remove things from your estate. If you've got some trustees that you can have in place, it depends why you want to use that as an instrument, but it can be good, especially if we're talking about, for example, life insurance policies. Putting things like that in a trust is definitely going to be a benefit, because when we die, a lot of people seem to forget that you know we pay tax on our death. So there's inheritance tax.
Yes, the tax man.
And is there a way to avoid inheritance tax?
No, you wouldn't want to avoid it. I think
Really?
the Queen might come looking for you.
Is there a way to
budget
minimize the inheritance
yeah,
tax? Just make it smaller?
Yeah, you can do some things which
Putting
are
things
tax
in
efficient.
trust.
Yeah.
When you put things in trust, don't you? Isn't that kind of a way around it?
Yeah. Because it's outside of your estate.
Yes.
So a trust is almost a separate entity. And then you can...
Because these are some of the things we've been exploring. Obviously, you don't want the taxman to just clean out what you've worked your life for.
Absolutely.
And you want to be able to pass it on to your kids without them losing a lot of it.
Absolutely.
So,
but even before even trust, just having things like a will, you'll be surprised how many people pass away and don't have a will. And then there's the families, and there's a whole big palaver that kicks off.
And you don't have to be old to make a will.
I had my will from I was about 22, so I've had my will for a long time.
It's not an elderly.
But wills have to be updated, right?
Yes.
As the circumstances change.
Yeah. Update them, but just have a basic will and review that will every couple of years as things change.
As things change. Of course. Got a couple of questions. How do I change my mindset towards money in a positive way when I've been such a bad steward of it and I'm still struggling?
That's a good question.
Might be also a good time to talk about credit as well.
I guess so. The two are quite similar in that they're probably related. If you're bad with money, you're probably bad with your bills, and your credit's probably not great. There are different things you can do to improve your credit.
Well, you can talk about mine. Because, I'll just be really transparent. I have a CCJ on my account, which comes off on the 5th of November 2021. I've been waiting for that. I still managed to get credit. So you helped me, and I didn't have great credit.
Yeah, absolutely. But you pay for not having good credit, right? Yours will come off, and some people don't even realize that. You know, whatever's on your credit report, if it's a negative, a demerit or something negative, does have an expiry period. It doesn't last forever, so challenge and check your.
So one
your
of the
credit.
things that people can do then is download Experian. I have an Experian app. I think I pay a monthly subscription.
£15.99.
So it does cost, but what it does, it makes me able to manage my credit score to make sure that my score is high. And when you look at that, if your score is low, then you know I've got to work on this.
Yes.
And what's some of the ways that someone can work on their credit score to get it up?
I think we need to go back a little bit to actually what a credit score is and
Yeah.
how that governs us, because we're
Yeah.
presuming that people actually know
Yeah.
what that is.
Yeah. So a credit score is an indication of your financial behavior and your financial
and who looks at that?
your financial stewardship. Everyone that's going to lend you money generally should.
Yeah.
In fact, sometimes if we're lending people money, it's like cash in hand. We should probably check their credit
It's true.
because we may not see that money
It's
again.
true.
But everyone that's going to lend you money generally
Yeah.
will. Whether you would say if you want to get a credit card, a loan, a car, a mortgage, they're going to check your credit
Yeah.
profile.
So it's important.
It's crucial. You can do some things with good credit, just off the strength of
Yeah,
having good
yeah.
credit, that some people can't because of where they're at
Yeah.
with their credit. So it's an indication. There's different organisations that look at that and manage that and report that.
Yeah.
But the most common ones is, as you mentioned, Experian, Equifax,
Equifax,
are
yeah.
the main two.
Yeah.
There's Cool Credit. There's other ones.
And how I know with my credit score, one of the things I didn't want to use credit cards. I didn't want any of those things. But my husband said I need to use my cards. I just
Yeah.
settle them at the end of each month.
Yeah.
When I get paid, I don't use them as an extension. And I've seen by using my card, clearing them, it's showing them, whoever looks at my credit score, that I'm good with managing my money.
Yeah.
And it's caused my score to be really high.
Yeah.
But you have to have some kind of card, but you've got to be disciplined in making sure that you pay off. So don't see it as an extension.
Yeah.
Recognize I've got to pay that back at the end of the month with my salary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And some people they're worried about the card, or if it's not a fancy name card, they don't want the card. But
Yeah.
essentially, it's just showing the lender or whoever it is that
Yeah.
you can borrow money and pay that money back.
Yes.
So-
Okay, sorry, we've got another question. Hi ladies, can you please ask where do we go to invest when we have investment ideas? I'm not sure what it means by investment ideas, maybe.
I think that I know that was something that Jason and I struggled with. We wanted to invest in shares, but it's actually quite hard to know how to invest, where to invest. You know, is it dodgy? You know, am I going to lose my money? You know, it's not something, because it's not taught in school, it's not taught anywhere. It's like, I know for Jason and I, we were kind of feeling our way through the dark for a long time and still actually not completely savvy to it now. So I think that's what they're asking. How do I even find where to invest?
I'd probably say to that person, invest in yourself, because if you have a lack of if you have questions, that's a good thing. But invest in yourself so that now you can translate what your goals are with where you invest. Somebody tells you to invest there. It may be good, it may not be good. It may be good, but it may not be what you want. But you won't understand that until you begin to understand how investing works, the jargon,
So
and
what
the
do you mean
pros and
invest
cons.
in yourself?
So invest in courses or
Okay.
pay someone.
Raise your value, basically.
Yeah.
Okay.
Pay someone, even if it's taking them out for lunch, who currently invests,
Okay.
and just get them to speak your language in
Okay.
terms of investing.
Yeah.
There are so many different types of investment. There are so many different ways to invest.
Okay.
There are so many different stock, and if you see it so often, people jump into something because everybody else is jumping into it, and the moment that thing's not doing what they thought it would be doing,
Yeah.
it's it's all hell's breaking loose. But really and truly, if you understand how investing works and you understand what your goals are, then it will begin to make sense. But on a really simple level, there's a lot of information online. Even your high street bank generally will be able to help you set up a stockbroking account. But there are different markets as well with investing, so it all depends. You can pull it into a pooled fund where somebody else is actively managing it.
Ours is done through our bank.
Okay, yeah. So there's different things.
Okay.
Okay, another question. As a young person, how do you build a credit profile?
So as a young person, it's really simple. You want to take out things with credit agreements so that it's on your credit profile. Most really basic things such as creating direct debits.
Your telephone. A lot of people don't realise that your
Yeah.
mobile phone actually is the reason why a lot of people have bad credit.
Yeah.
When you don't pay your mobile phone bill, it can be positive or negative.
Yeah.
So things like that probably. As a young
Absolutely. So it
person.
reflects on your credit, your mobile phone. Those are probably the two ways that I'd say initially to kick off in terms of building your credit. Then things like credit cards as well. Be honest, if you know that you're not that great with money, have a small limit. Start with a small limit. Tell the credit card company you don't want to increase it until you're
don't
confident.
get
Don't
too
get too
excited.
happy.
And I think simple things as well, like going on the electoral roll.
Yeah.
Yes.
You have to be on the electoral roll for 3 years. I
Yeah.
think it
Yeah.
is to actually be positive on your credit file.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So electoral roll is a good one. I know I said get a small credit limit. Actually, a high credit limit helps your credit if you're not using the higher limit.
Yeah.
So those are some of the things. But electoral roll is another really simple, really easy one.
Yeah.
to,
It doesn't cost you anything.
Yeah.
When it comes to paying, managing the finances in a home, who should manage it? Because I know, from pastoral perspective, it's oftentimes culturally men feel I'm the man, so I should rule. I should manage the finances, and that man may be the worst at managing the finances. So who in that area would you say?
Yeah. Who rules the roost?
Yes.
I don't think there's a wrong or right answer for that. I think it can be either or, both. I think ideally you have both of you actively working towards the money and working towards your goals.
Yes.
Each individual might not be there. So if you're in a marriage and you have goals, collective goals, you're in a covenant, then I feel like maybe empowering the person who has that strength with the finances is a good thing, whether they're male, female, whether it's the husband or the wife. But I think transparency is key in that, and I think that it can be such an area of contention that I think the most important thing is to really just disarm any sort of fears and apprehensions people might have about money, with marriage. But I don't think there's a right answer.
Just a question: if my husband is like really bad with money, and as much money as I'm making,
Can I hide it from him?
Yeah, that's kind of what
I would hide it from him.
So I'm making all this money, but we can't progress because
he keeps blowing
it on some next idea thing. How do I, as a woman, I'm stuck in this situation. What do I do?
Every time I take 2 steps forward, he makes us
takes
take
you
10
five.
steps back.
And I know women that have lost their homes and their properties, come home and their husbands actually lost their property and things like that. Personally, I would struggle with that. If I'm honest.
Yeah, but I think there's a reason why that money is one of the main reasons why people divorce.
Yeah.
It is such a major factor in a
If you
relationship.
made me lose my house, I
That's
don't
a big deal.
believe it.
Yeah.
It's a big deal for me. I'm just gonna put it out there. That's a deal breaker.
It's a tough
That's
one.
a big one. Like my big house.
I know. I would be so frustrated
Yeah.
because these are things you may not know about before you got married, and probably one thing, girls, before you get married, check his credit score.
I think it works both ways.
Yeah,
Both
both
ways.
ways.
Both
Yeah,
ways.
you should check each other's credit score
No, but
because that says a lot.
No, but I think that you need to be abreast. I know you're trying to answer, Shane, and we keep talking. I think that you need to be. I think you need to. We actually need to be quiet. Let Shane talk for the next 10 minutes. But I think that you do need to actually be, like you said. Even if one person is managing the finances, just because you may be the one setting up the standing orders, the direct debits, I should still know when the bills come in. I should be able to still open those envelopes.
Yes.
I should be able to still see if there's a red letter. Well,
Don't
okay,
hide
what's going
it.
on?
Yeah.
Like, do you get what I
Don't
mean?
hide it.
But open the letter.
Exactly.
Don't just
Yeah.
not open it because my husband pays the bills.
Yeah.
And then when you come home and then you want to cry because your
You're
house
clueless.
is
Clueless.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but you were on in first class, in
Yeah.
Seychelles,
Yeah.
but now the house is gone, you're pleading ignorance.
Yeah.
I think it's I think it's one of those things where you should know, like you should have a rough idea. It doesn't mean you're checking the online banking every 5 minutes.
I do.
Yeah, some people do.
Yeah.
But I think why should it be an issue of contention? Like generally, the reason you wouldn't tell somebody something or you wouldn't want to give them
You're up to
access
no good.
is because or because you're afraid of something.
Yeah.
And I think maybe start there. You know, if you take the fear of whatever you may be afraid of
Yeah.
out of the equation, then
Yes.
it should become a lot easier to be open and transparent, and just work together with that. So I think, you know, have the conversation. Have, if you need, you know, it's not beyond some people to have accountability in that area. If you need to have a third party that's checking things out, have that. If you, a lot of the time these issues won't arise if you have a set budget.
Yeah.
Like, have a budget in place. If you know that this is your budget and this is your recreational leisure money, spending money, holiday money, then you can challenge some decisions. If you don't have that in place, then, you know, you don't know, and you're thinking everything's good, and then you come back from the holiday and the house is gone. You know?
God forbid. But I think that what you're saying is really key, and I think that this is something that I govern everything by in terms of budgets. But I'm always quite surprised when I speak to people and they don't budget, whether single, married, or whatever. Most people don't actually know on paper how much all their bills come to. So when you ask them how much they earn, they'll say £3,000 a month or £2,500 a month, but you don't actually earn £2,500 a month. You earn whatever's left over from your bills. So let's talk a little bit about budgets and how important that is, whether single, married, or anything else in between.
I think that's key. I've seen high net worth individuals, people with lots of money, affluent people, people who are football players, Premier League, and when you actually strip down where their money's going, they actually don't have that much money. Like, they actually don't have any surplus money. Their income levels are high, but their expenses are higher. And so I think budgeting is key. You can take the time to try and put those things in place yourself. But if you need to pay for someone, you know, pay for someone to help you go through that. Pay, you know, same way you will with a mechanic. You can do some things yourself, but you know, pay for expertise. Sometimes just exchanging that money will make you take the whole process a lot more serious. And so get those things in place. The budget's key. You really don't know how much you've got until you have a budget. And you're really not working towards any goals unless you have a budget.
And I heard once somebody that is quite wealthy say that you should always aim to live below your means. So if you can afford a house for, say, 400, get one for 300. So that if anything does go wrong, you're always living below that. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, that's wisdom. I think there's some things, if you can't buy them twice, 3 times, 4 times over, don't buy them at all. I think it's key. We live in a society where everyone's trying to live beyond their means.
That's a problem right there.
And so everyone's trying to work out how much they can borrow, how much money they can get from here. And we have this culture where we max everything out. But actually, there's something to be said about being conservative or being content with where you are, and knowing that life is seasonal, and you know, in some stages you're going to get there. Doesn't matter if you get there now. You know, who cares? Stop trying to impress people that really are not that interested. Going broke to look rich. Just be true to where you are and just enjoy that process and that journey. So I agree, living below your means is a good thing, but at the same time aspiring to raise that bar.
So we're running out of time. Gosh,
Very
it's gone
quickly,
so quickly.
We haven't even touched mortgages.
So let's just jump onto mortgages, because I know that this is
Do you
a
think
big
we'll have
one.
time?
Yeah, let's just kind of do a quick overview of what obviously what mortgages are, who it's available to, what's required to get a mortgage. Because I think some people, it's a little bit daunting and it can be quite overwhelming, so they don't even venture down that road. Just talk us through, like, what is the structure of a mortgage, and is it available to everybody?
Different types
What
of
kind of mortgages? What do I need to be earning in order to, what's a realistic budget, or a house price that I should be looking at based on my income? Talk us through that a little bit.
Wow, it's a massive.
Sorry,
That's how I was going to make it part 2.
It's a massive topic, but essentially, a mortgage is a loan secured against real estate, against the property. There's different types. You can have a mortgage that you're repaying. You can have a mortgage where you're paying the interest and hoping that the asset appreciates. Just try and run through some of those questions. Can anyone get a mortgage? Generally speaking, probably, yeah. You'll be surprised. Some people feel like they can't, but they can. Does that mean they're going to get the mortgage they want? no, that's a whole nother
Yeah.
another story. And so engaging with that process and speaking to an advisor, a bank, somebody online, just to work out how much you can borrow is a key thing.
Okay.
There's general rules of thumbs in terms of how much you can borrow and how much deposit you need. So again, it's really key to get the right information. But that's in a nutshell in sort of a minute.
Well, how do we work out what we can borrow? So if I earn, say for example, 200,000, that's not realistic. Say I earn 30,000 a year. Roughly, how much would I be? How would I work that out?
General rule of thumb would be times that by sort of 4.5 times, or 4.75 times, or 5 times, or 5.5 times.
Okay.
So it's a bit of there's a couple rules in there, but generally like 4.5 times if you want to be conservative.
Yeah.
The reason why you can't just run to the estate agent with that without speaking to someone is because there's other things that are at play.
Yeah.
So like sometimes you'll have somebody who earns loads of money, has a really good healthy income, but like we said before, can have a lot of expenses.
Yeah.
And actually somebody who earns slightly less money could probably get a bigger loan because they have less expenses.
Yeah.
So it's really based on what's called affordability.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there are different metrics for that, and different banks assess that differently, which is why it's good to have access to somebody who can talk you through that process. But generally speaking, that's kind of how you would be looking at working out how much you can borrow.
And if your credit's really bad, like you've got CCJs all over the place and whatever else the other things are, defaults and everything else, can I get a house or am I stuck?
So you can, but you'll pay for it. So the interest rate that you'll be paying on the loan will be a lot higher, and that creates a whole different set of conversations. You have to work out now: is this viable? Is this a good investment? Is it the right time? And this comes down to beyond your means. That whole scenario. A lot of that stuff will come off your credit report eventually, so you can either work towards that point, or you can maybe go in and get a loan, but you're going to pay more for the loan.
And then let's just touch really quickly because we're running out of time rapidly. So also, I think a lot of people get confused when we hear like 100% mortgage, 80% mortgage, 90% mortgage. Do you want to just, because we're going to have to do a part 2. Everyone's writing it now. So let's just talk about that quickly, and then guys, we're going to have to continue this next week because we're not going to be able to answer all your questions. We will screenshot them,
And we want to be able to explore the
because we're
mortgage thing
literally
a lot
like
more.
blitzing this now.
It's a big subject.
So I think what you're describing is loan to value,
Yeah.
and essentially what that is the percentage of the loan against the purchase price or the house.
Yeah.
So if you had a house that was worth £100,000 and you had a £50,000 mortgage, you would have what's called 50% loan to value.
Yeah.
So that's how that number's worked out. It's the percentage of the loan towards the percentage of the house or the asset.
Yeah.
The difference is generally how much equity you would have in that asset, or how much your deposit needs to be.
And I know when I was getting my house, we originally were trying to get a 10% deposit, which was a 90% mortgage. They turned around and said, actually, no, we want 15%, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it ended up being another, I think, £15,000.
It's a big deal.
It's a big deal. So in the long run, it's really good that we were able to put down more of a deposit. But I think that you do also need to bear that in mind when you're looking at a property. You do need to put down a percentage of whatever that property is. So the higher the value of the property, the higher the value of the deposit that you're also going to have to put down.
Absolutely, and a lot of that's related to credit as well.
Yeah.
Because if your credit's not great, then you're deemed as a higher risk because they're looking through and saying, oh, actually, no, you didn't pay money back then, so we're going to keep some money back. And that's where the loan to value changes. They're less generous, and that's why you pay more when your credit's not as good.
Okay, so we are out of time. So will you come back next week?
Well, I'll come back, yeah.
Yes, okay.
Maybe not next week. We'll come back.
On live TV, no pressure whatsoever. So Shayan's going to come back. We're going to go more into just everything.
Yes.
We're going to start probably with mortgages, talk a little bit more about that, how we can, stamp duty, all of those fun things. Talk about that, but we want to go, if you weren't on from the beginning, can you just give us your Instagram name again, your email, how do we get in contact with you?
How do we start the process?
And how do we start the process? Is it starting a conversation with you first?
Super simple. Instagram Monarch Sterling. Just go on.
MONAR.
Yeah,
So it's on your screens for
Yeah.
those of you that are on YouTube and Facebook now.
Yeah.
So it's at the bottom of your screen, Monarch Sterling. Can we leave that up for a minute, Dom? And then for Instagram, it's Monarch, MONARCH, Sterling, STERLING. Let's follow that now as soon as this program is over, and then let's hit
direct message. Direct message. Contact me. All the information's on there.
Yeah.
Someone said, can we start with the serious stuff first, please? There's a ton of questions. Can you get a mortgage to buy land and build a house from scratch? So we'll be answering all of those questions.
So we'll
on the next
screenshot. Can someone just screenshot this for us so that we can have all of the questions that we haven't yet been able to answer?
And also, if you have a question and you've not put it in the
Send
comments,
it in
just send it
early.
in through the DMs, and we'll make
what
sure we
we'll
answer.
do is we'll run a question thing on Instagram. So if you could submit that, then we'll just be able to spend a lot more time answering all your questions. Thank you so much, Sharon.
Thank you for coming on.
Thank you.
And we'll see you guys next week for another episode
Part
of
2.
Girl Talk.
See you next week.
See you next week.